Okay, friends, I welcome each one of you to this lecture on rights. Friends, today, this evening, we are going to talk about the political theory of human rights. But friends, the night of April 14, 15, 2014, (276) girl students aged between 16 and 18 were kidnapped by an Islamic terrorist organization. You might remember the name Boko Haram. And these girls were taken from Government Girls Secondary School in the Borno state of Nigeria. They were kidnapped as a strategy by the Boko Haram to bargain the release of some of their terror activists. But for that, the crime they have committed was that they kidnapped innocent girls. And some of them immediately escaped that place. You just look at another incident that happened some years ago in 2000. Lord's Resistance Army, that's a guerrilla group in Uganda. They have kidnapped boys and girls to train as soldiers, and girls particularly as sexual slaves of their commanders. And LRA, that is Lord's Resistance Army, by 2002 had almost kidnapped 2,000 children in Uganda. And friends, in Afghanistan, there is a very brutal practice. That is, every time when a girl is arrested on charge of immoral or on charge of, some alleged morality issues, the clergy in Afghanistan invasively conduct a vaginal examination of that particular girl and test their virginity. See, look at the brutal practices being conducted by people and groups in different parts of the world. And in Uganda, in recent time, you see, gay marriage was criminalized and very serious punishments were being given to homosexuals, including life in prison. And friends, world over, you can see that 27 million women are being traded as part of sex trade. That is flesh trade. 27 million. Look at the number, friends. So, friends, these are some examples of brutalities being conducted in different parts of the world against humans. And friends, these are not offenses simply considered to be a violation of some laws enacted by the state. These are some examples of grave crimes, grave offenses against humans, which degrades man's dignity, man's humanity, man's very nature. That's why I told you these examples in the beginning of this lecture, just to remind you the fact that we are going to talk about an idea called the political theory of human rights. And friends, human rights, when we talk about human rights, we have to talk about human rights as something bigger than our simple conversations on a right. It's something a very different, very broad idea, human rights. To understand how these types of crime, all crimes are, illegal, and all crimes are against man, but some particular types of crimes being conducted by man against man needs to be viewed from a very different angle. Here comes the significance of what we are going to talk about, the political theory of human rights. Friends, you see, we can understand this issue. That is why some type of crime is different, why some type of crime is considered to be so grave, and why some type of crimes are being considered against man and his very nature. We can understand this by looking at the very idea of, or the theory of, human rights. This is not simply a right issue. This is a human right issue. So right and human rights are very different. They are both different. You have to approach it from different perspectives. So friends, let us understand this political theory of human rights and why and how it differs from our simple notion of rights. So let us come to this discussion on the theory of human rights. Friends, on 5th of April 1588, that is 16th century, 5th of April 1588, the famous British political philosopher Thomas Hobbes was born. That day, the day 5th of April 1588, that day, when Thomas Hobbes was born, Hobbes said in his autobiography that when my mother was laboring me, she happened to hear a terrifying news. Friends, let us see what was that news. The news was that the famous and the mighty Spanish Armada, that's a fleet of ship, a powerful fleet of ship owned by the Spaniards, was set to leave the Spanish coast, and they were moving to Britain. Why? Simple reason. They want to attack Britain. So British people, when they happen to hear this news, like Thomas Hobbes' mother, who was laboring him that day, British people were all under fear, a shadow of an imminent threat, an attack by the mighty Spanish Armada. And Thomas Hobbes says, my mother was laboring me, and Hobbes metaphorically said about his own birth that my mother gave birth to twins. Fear and I were born twins. And according to Hobbes, friends, external events affected his character, that his character was not coming from some internal or some moral worldview of man himself, or from the moral nature of man himself, but rather he said his character was shaped in a way how external events around him shaped, and he reacted to that events. And Hobbes was saying, in the shadow of Armada, that is Spanish Armada, he was saying in his autobiography, page number 24, I have referred that book for this lecture. My mother was big with such a fear that she brought twins to birth, myself and fear at the same time. And ever since, fear is ever a keynote in the political philosophy of this British political philosopher. That he was proposing a political philosophy based on the idea that man is basically afraid of his surrounding. Man got fear in his heart. So friends, in 1651, this philosopher wrote a magnum opus called Leviathan, which you may already know. Before this book, he had also written some other books such as The Elements of Law, De Cive. But the crux of all these books, which Thomas Hobbes had written, formed the basis of what the world and the academic world particularly later called social contract theory. So Hobbes was saying that to escape from a society in which people live under fear, it is necessary we have to create a state based on social contract. That is, government is something like a trust. That is, state is a trust with a responsibility towards the citizen. Ever since, the social contract literature was born with the writings of Thomas Hobbes, particularly his Leviathan, which was written in 1651. So this theory says that is, social contract theory says that the reason why men formed state and why we should obey state. That is the idea of social contract theory. That social contract theories tell you that why should we form state and why should we obey the state, or why should we obey laws. From this theory of social contract, which was written in the book Leviathan, Hobbes also proposed in the sidelines of that book, that social contract theory book, Hobbes also proposed, friends, a famous idea which later became the basis of our today's lecture, that is human rights. What is that idea? Some of you may be able to tell me that idea. Can anybody tell me what is that idea? Anybody remember that idea? On the sidelines of social contract, that Thomas Hobbes proposed a different idea which later formed the basis of human rights. Can anyone say? No.
Human rights are those rights entitled of the virtue of being a human being.
Yeah, yes, Nandana. But he used a word. No one remember that word? That word is natural rights. You remember natural rights?
Yes, sir.
Right? All of you remember? Okay. So friends, in the sidelines of his social contract theory, Hobbes also proposed an idea called natural rights. That's a very renowned theory which dominated social thinking, social philosophy in the 18th and 19th century. That Hobbesian idea of natural right dominated social thinking or social philosophy, particularly political thinking, in the 17th and 18th century. And friends, Hobbes says that is not Hobbes, not directly saying, but later interpretation of Hobbes was saying that rights of man are self-evident truth. That is, in my previous lectures, I told you that there are some rights which are priori, that you don't need any proof for the fact that you have certain rights. Why? Because you get that right just because of the fact that you are born. They are called self-evident truth. Such rights are called self-evident truth. And Hobbes called such rights as natural rights. He called this self-evident truth as natural rights. And for Hobbes, what is natural right? And he connected natural right with what I told you about his birth, fear. What is fear? That we are all living a life under the shadow of fear. We don't know what happens to us the next moment. So we live in an uncertain world, that whether our neighbor kill us or somebody attack us or somebody steal our possessions. You sleep at your home. What if a thief trespass your house and rob you off? You will react, friends. Of course, we will react. Why? We will react. Why? Because you live under the shadow of a fear, and whatever you do out of your fear, that a robber has trespassed into your house, and whatever you may react can be justified. Even you committing a murder in your house can be justified because your actions are a response to that action of the thief, because he was trying to rob you. Even murder can be justified because you live under the shadow of a fear, and a thief has trespassed into your house and you reacted, and your reaction resulted in the death of that thief. And all of us are by nature always try to preserve our own life. We want to protect ourselves. That's why we build a house and we give doors to it, and we put locks to it, and wherever you go you are always very careful about, very alert about our own security, and we are very careful what others are doing, whether we are safe in our dealings in the society, because we want to preserve our own life at whatever cost. Real. So we risk anything to save our life. But Hobbes, however, Hobbes was arguing that humans once enter into a political order, that we are born and we formed a political order, and once we enter into a political order, a body politic, Hobbes called this body politic, we will transfer this right of self-preservation, that when a thief come to our house and trespass it, and we react out of our fear, and sometimes that thief may die, you committed a murder, but you can be justified because you have done it as a response to your fear. This right to self-preservation is given to a sovereign authority once you enter into a political society. And what was your right? Your right was right to self-preservation, that you look into yourself and you are bothered about your security, you care about your life. Ever since, whatever the sovereign commands, once you have transferred your right to self-preservation to a sovereign authority, whatever the sovereign commands hereafter will become law, and you enjoy liberty, you enjoy right according to what the sovereign commands. And friends, this type of an interpretation of right is called positive right, because your right comes from whom? Right comes from the sovereign. Sovereign grant us right. Sovereign grant us right. That idea is also called legal right or positive right. That is, state gives us right, but our right is neither God given nor nature given. That is the idea of positive right. But however, friends, Hobbes was very cautious that he was even ready to accept one idea, that once you have given your right to self-preservation to a sovereign, man still possesses one important right. What is that right? Right to self-preservation. Friends, you think in a different way. What if your sovereign is not in a position to secure your right to life, and some of the actions of your sovereign has resulted in your death? No, we can't tolerate that. Friends, in such occasions, that when the actions of your sovereign, that is political authority, result as a threat to your own life, you can react against the sovereign. And that right, that your right to react against any situation that may result as a threat to your own life is your natural right. Clear? Okay? So here you can find the famous notion of natural right. That when your sovereign himself failed to protect your right, you can react to the sovereign. And that right is called natural right. And that is the idea that even before you formed or you entered into a political society, you are about to enjoy certain right by nature. You are about to enjoy certain right by nature. For Hobbes, natural right is that right. Natural right is that right which gives us right to life. And if anything happens that destroys us, we can resist it, we can preserve our right to life by any means, even by revolt, even by murder. Friends, before Thomas Hobbes, no human society ever thought of a right like this, that man had a natural right. And there wasn't any sound notion of right before that. That even the ancient or the medieval societies never had any idea of rights being possessed by man by nature. It was in this background, friends, another political philosopher 1 century later, that is, Thomas Hobbes was product of 16th century, and 1 century later, another very famous political philosopher was born in British soil. Can anybody say that political philosopher?
John Locke.
Yes, correct. Sravya. Very good. Champion. So, John Locke. John Locke came into the mainstay of British society. And he has written voluminously about man and society. And his writings dominated 17th and 18th century intellectual world of Europe. And most important works of John Locke were published after Glorious Revolution of 1688. And he feared that his writings may face some kind of censorship, because he was writing against royal absolutism, that kings derived their right from God. God appointed David as not David. What was Evans? What was that? I forgot. Adam, Adam and Eve. And God appointed Adam as the king of Christians, because he has wrote against that idea in the Bible, book of Genesis. And he has written the famous book, Two Treatises of Government in 1689, a letter concerning toleration, an essay concerning human understanding, thoughts on education, on the reasonableness of Christianity. So many books he had written. And friends, throughout his writing, the central idea was that man possesses some rights by nature, just like Thomas Hobbes said about natural rights. But friends, when natural rights comes into the hand of John Locke, the idea became so polished, the idea became sophisticated, and idea became, it has grown up. That idea has grown up. That became a polished idea. And Locke believes that even before we enter into a political society, we are born to nature with certain rights, and all of us enjoy that right. And he called it, and he referred three specific rights in his writing. They are right to life, liberty, and property. But when it comes to Hobbes, he says that man by nature got a right to self-preservation. But when it comes to John Locke, another British political philosopher, social contractualist, he was saying that we have very important three rights: right to life, liberty, and property. So the meaning of natural rights has expanded from the idea that Thomas Hobbes talked about 1 century ago. And Locke says, friends, your natural rights are inherent in your creation. These rights are by virtue of your nature, because you are a human. Since you are a human, you have certain rights. No matter, friends, where you are born, these rights needs to be protected. So you are an Indian, for example, you are an Indian citizen, and you are born in the territory beyond the Khyber Pass. We call that is Indian territory. And you are born an Indian, and you went abroad, for example, and you are working in the streets of Tokyo, or you are buying something in a supermarket in the streets of Budapest, or friends, you are riding a car in the roads of Helsinki, or friends, you are talking to someone in the streets of Melbourne. Friends, no matter whatever you are doing in a foreign land, despite being the fact that you are an Indian citizen, your nationality doesn't matter, friends. You have certain rights, you have certain claims, and that claim is respected everywhere, no matter what your nationality is. Wherever you go, friends, these rights will follow you. So, friends, for proposing this sort of an argument about life of man in a society, that which he enjoyed even before political order was established, for proposing this sort of an argument, that is, friends, you, all of you friends sitting in this classroom, enjoy certain rights just because you are born, and such rights are called natural rights, and such rights are protected everywhere, no matter where you go. Friends, that is the reason why he was called, John Locke was called the intellectual father of American Revolution, for proposing this specific idea. And friends, you see, in the same way, just beyond the English Channel, you can find France, another mighty European nation, where another champion of natural rights were born. Can you tell me the name of that champion of liberty?
Rousseau.
Yes. Very good, very good. So, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He was born just beyond that territory, beyond the English Channel. And he proposed almost similar notion about natural rights, but through a different way. And he proposed what may be called a theory of human nature, in which Rousseau argued that, friends, man by nature has only one character. Can you tell me what is that character that man possesses by his birth? Can anybody say? Many times I have told you in your classes, in previous lectures, man by nature possesses one character. Can anybody say? No.
Noble savage.
Yeah, yes. Man is a noble savage. Man is a noble savage. And to characterize that noble savagery in man, he used a word, a vocabulary, a particular lexicon. Are you not able to remember that lexicon he used? Yes. a particular terminology, amor di soi. You remember?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Amor di soi. What is amor di soi? In French language, it means self-love. That man loves himself. That man has desire. And friends, you see, we like ice cream, we like mobile, we like car, we like cloth, etc. And we only know that we love everything. That is what we know. And friends, we only know what we like, and we don't know anything about whether our liking is right or wrong. We don't know whether our liking is moral or immoral. We don't know whether our liking is fair or unfair, but we love, but we like. We like ice cream, we like house, we like other people, we like everything that we like. And we don't know about the moral side of that liking. That is called amor di soi. And that is human nature. The point is that we have desire for things we like. That Rousseau says. We have desire for the things we like. And hopes, like Rousseau, like Hobbes and Locke was saying that man by nature got this character. And that is our very nature. And that is our right. You should not spoil that right. That we like what we like. And you should not judge the merit of that liking. Because that is our character. You look at the animal world. Whether the animal, in the animal kingdom, whether the lion do something, and are you going to judge that lion is doing something based on whether that was fair or unfair? No, this notion of fairness or unfair thing, this notion of rightness or wrongness, where this notion of what is right thing and wrong thing is not in the animal kingdom. They only like. The lion like, the fox like, the tiger like, the cheetah like, the bison like. All the animals in the animal kingdom just like what they like. And that is amor di soi. And you have to protect that amor di soi. That is human nature. And friends, through the writings of Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, what may be later called the idea of natural right has become a polished idea in the continental Europe by 17th century and 18th century. And later, this idea of natural right was called by a word, with a specific terminology that is called human right. This notion of natural right was later called human rights. Anyhow, friends, the writings of these, prolific writers about human nature and their rights, which they enjoyed, which all of you enjoyed, even before your birth, even before the birth of political order, resulted in the drafting of three very, very, very important declarations. Can you tell me, friends, what are those declarations? Can anybody say the writings of these writers resulted in the drafting of three very important declarations on the rights of man? Can you tell me? Anyone? No guess?
Declaration of Human Rights.
Declaration of Human Rights. That is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Right, Abhaya, you are champion. Anybody else? Two other declarations. Can you make a wild guess?
American
Declaration of Independence. Then one more.
Bill of Rights.
No, not Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights was incorporated in the American Constitution. That's certain articles, not that declaration. One more declaration. You remember that? That happened in French society. What is that?
Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, Anandarano.
That's a motto, but that's a name to that movement. French Declaration of the Rights of Man. The French Declaration of Rights of Man and of the Citizen. So friends, the writings of these three very prolific writers resulted in the drafting of three very important declarations related to the rights of man. They are the American Declaration of Independence 1776, French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen 1789, and friends, in 1948 the United Nations Organization passed a famous declaration called Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Friends, these declarations form the very fundamentals of human rights, and this idea originated in the writings of social contract theorists and their notion of natural rights. And friends, you see, American Declaration of Independence 1776 expressed the idea that, friends, we hold this truth to be self-evident. They are saying like this. We hold, this is the sentence directly taken from the Declaration of American Declaration of Independence. We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And American Declaration of Independence categorically specifies three very important rights of man by nature. Friends, this is not granted by any political authority. You will get this just because, friends, you are born a human. What are them? You have a life, you have liberty, and you have happiness. And friends, when come to Europe, 1789, the French Revolution and the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, which was drafted by the French revolutionaries, which says like this. Friends, they are saying, with the sentence directly taken from the Declaration, men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Social distinctions can be based only upon public utility. If you give privileges to any man in this world, friends, that privilege should be on the basis of common goodness of all man on earth. That is the idea of French Declaration. And friends, that happened in the 18th century. These declarations happened in the 18th century. And you see, the aim of every political association is the preservation of these natural rights of man. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. Friends, 19th and 20th century, however, witnessed these declarations happened in the 18th century. One is 1776, the other one is 1789. That is the 18th century. But friends, the 19th and 20th century, the 19th and 20th century had witnessed mass massacres, brutalities against man, genocide against man, and 2 world wars. And particularly, there was a very serious concern after World War II that between 1939 and 45, the famous Nuremberg trial happened. That happened in the year 1946. Nuremberg trial started in 1946. And some German Nazis were tried for crimes against humanity apart from war crimes. That is, some Nazi Germans were tried. For what charges? For charges of crimes against humanity. That word is very important, friends. Crimes against humanity other than crimes in the war or war crimes. That word is very important. Crimes against humanity. The most barbarous and inhuman atrocities committed by these accused German Nazis were their crimes against Jews. And the word later called these crimes as Holocaust. HOLOCAUST, Holocaust. So you will get 2 important words, war crimes and crimes against humanity. And 20th century had seen witnessed so many war crimes and so many crimes against humanities. And the capture of H-Man, you remember a book, H-Man in Jerusalem, by Hannah Arendt. And the capture of H-Man, whose trial later became the storylines of several movies. After World War II, the Holocaust mastermind, he was a Holocaust mastermind. He was behind the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were massacred. Adolf Eichmann disappears. All of a sudden, when Hitler died and World War II ended, all of a sudden, Eichmann disappeared from the European territory itself. And nobody knows what happened to Eichmann, who was the mastermind behind Holocaust. And all other Nazi leaders committed suicide along with Adolf Hitler. But there is no news of Adolf Eichmann, who himself killed 3 million Jews during Holocaust. And Israel was created in 1948, and they created a secret agency called Mossad to find out people who committed crimes against Jews in the German territories in European world. And this Mossad was particularly created to bring those who committed crimes against Jews in German part of Europe. And Peter Malkin was a Polish-born Israeli secret agent and a member of the famous Mossad intelligence agency. He was part of the team that captured Adolf Eichmann in Argentina in 1960. Friends, Adolf Eichmann went to fled to Argentina, and Argentina had no diplomatic tie-up with Israel. And you see, this Mossad organized a secret activity in Argentina, and even without the knowledge of Argentinian government. And they went to these people. This famous Peter Malkin went to Argentina and brought back Adolf Eichmann to Israel and conducted this Nuremberg trial. And Argentina didn't maintain any diplomatic tie-up with Israel, and that is why Eichmann fled to Argentina. And it was a famous event. That is how Mossad managed to capture Eichmann back to Israel through a plane. That's to a plane. And even without a cargo checkup, that he was put into a coffin-like cargo cover. And there were, this Mossad managed to clear cargo checkup without Eichmann being noticed in that pack. That was a mystery, still a mysterious thing in the secret agency world. It is still a mystery. Ever since, this event has been subject of 3 movies and so many novels. That is why, friends, still Peter Malkin is considered one of the ever best secret agent in the world, and Mossad is considered to be one of the finest secret service in the world, even far better than America's intelligence agency or Russia's KGB. It's one of the best intelligence service in the world because they brought back Eichmann from Argentina to Israel. So what Israel did was, on the assumption that human rights are valid by themselves. Human rights are above the law of any nation, no matter Germany or Argentina or Israel. Man got certain rights above national laws, and violation of these rights would be treated as crime against humanity. So such people should be punished and they should be brought to justice. Hence the famous notion, crime against humanity. And friends, crime against humanity are namely murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and other inhuman acts committed against any civilized population before or during or after war, or persecution in political or racial or religious grounds. If you are going to persecute some people on political, racial, or religious grounds, just like what happens to Aung San Suu Kyi in India's neighboring country. So it's an example of political persecution. See, these are all crimes against humanity considered to be a human rights issue. So slave trade, Holocaust, or the Tokyo trial. These are all examples of crimes against humanity. Tokyo trial, or the rape of Belgium, or the Armenian genocide, or the Assyrian genocide, or the Greek genocide. So many crimes the world had witnessed in 20th century. Even after the world pronounced two declarations, French declarations and American declarations of rights of man. So 2 centuries after, the world has been witnessing so many crimes against man. Friends, so the notion of right presumes that even if you aren't a national or a citizen of a society, but the very fact that you are born on earth, by the very fact that you are a human, by the very fact that you have a certain dignity, that you are enjoying human rights. We will hereafter call this notion human rights, that you have a certain inherent dignity, that is human rights. You got it just because you are a human being. Look at the Uttara episode in Kerala. See, Uttara died. Or look at Vismaya episode in Kerala. She died because of a dowry issue. Or you look at some months ago, Rajan B. Dev's daughter-in-law, Priyanka was died. See, their death is an indicator of the human rights standard in our society. Then some people are living below the standard of human dignity. That's why these people they committed suicide. But friends, their suicide cannot be considered simply a suicide. It's homicide. This is homicide, not simply suicide, because they felt that they are not able to live in this society because of society itself is torturous. Society itself is torturous. That's why society killed them. Society killed them. So sad. So friends, still in our society, friends, you can see basis of human relationship is based on dowry. You see your parents buy husbands for the daughters by offering dowry. Husbands are killers. See, the idea of dowry itself is pre-modern, it's inhuman and against humanity. But friends, you see, it is still being practiced. And of course, your parents will offer you dowry, and you will buy it, of course, right? You will all practice it. Am I correct? You all practice dowry. So we are not ashamed, even though it's a crime against the very idea of human. So look, media reported that Vismaya's father-in-law claims his son deserves a car worth more than 20 lakh. Look at the way in which people thinks in our society. That father-in-law is saying before media that he deserves more than a 20 lakh worth car. Look how these father-in-laws become brute animals, inhuman, who defend dowry. So friends, don't practice dowry, because we have got certain dignity. So you will get this dignity protected not because you are a national citizen, but a human being, right? So simply said, human rights are rights by virtue of being a human. Human rights are rights by virtue of being a human. And in 1948, friends, the United Nations issued an elaborate list of human rights, and which is called Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it was passed on 10th December 1948. That is why every 10th December is called Human Rights Day, and we celebrate that day to celebrate the fact that man got dignity. So it was passed motivated by the brute experiences of 2 world wars and other Nazi massacre, Holocaust, That's why this act was declared by United Nations General Assembly on 10th December 1948. And friends, Universal Declaration of Human Rights got 30 articles and a preamble. And the preamble categorically recognizes the inherent dignity and equality of all human beings. It categorically recognizes the inherent dignity and equality of all human beings who are born in this world. And you got inalienable rights. That preamble itself says that you got inalienable rights. And right is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And this preamble says, tell you that if you read that preamble, you will get the idea that that is human right is the foundation of human freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And friends, from Article 1 to 21, you got 30 articles, and from Article 1 to 21, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights talks about civil, political, and legal rights. So it categorizes rights. In your syllabus, there are talks about civil rights, political rights, and legal rights, economic rights, social rights, and some extent cultural rights. So many rights are being categorized, and the Universal Declaration categorizes rights. From Article 1 to 21, it talks about civil, political, and legal rights. Article 1 to 21. And from Article 22 to 26, from 22 and 26, this declaration talks about social and economic rights. And Article 27 talks about cultural rights. So look, how many rights are being categorized? Civil, political, and legal rights from Article 1 to 21. And even in Indian Constitution, these rights are being included. We have categorization of such rights in the fundamental rights part. So you got civil rights, political rights, and legal rights according to Universal Declaration from Article 1 to 21. Then you got social and economic rights from Article 22 and 26. Between that articles, you will get social and economic rights. And 27, you will get what may be called cultural rights. And 28 says you got entitlement to social and international order. That in the world there should be freedom. If there is no freedom in the world, you cannot live peacefully in your own society. If there are problems in Africa, if there are problems in America, if there are problems in Europe, you cannot peacefully live in Asia. Asians cannot live peacefully when there are problems in Africa. So there should be freedom, peace in the world, so that you can enjoy freedom, liberty, and right. And Article 29 and 30 focuses on our duty to respect the rights. So not only you are enjoying rights, friends, you are also enjoying certain, what may be called certain responsibility, or otherwise called duty in political science literature. You also got duty. It also got a theoretical basis. Duty also got a theoretical basis, and we will have a lecture on duty also. So duty is not simply doing something. It's not that, it got a philosophical foundation, duty. And that duty begins from also right. That duty, notion of duty begins from the notion of right. And all this declaration, particularly Universal Declaration of Rights, Human Rights, says that you also got duty, and it is being mentioned in Article 29 and 30 of the Declaration. And friends, apart from these Universal Declarations, there are so many other human rights documents, such as European Convention of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, American Convention on Human Rights, Helsinki Accords. There are so many, Vienna Convention, 1993. There are so many, articles, enactments, international agreements. Besides this, there are organizations working specifically in the field of human rights. For example, in India, you will get People's Union for Civil Liberties and People's Union for Democratic Rights. Or in the world, you have humanitarian organizations like Amnesty International, which is headquartered in London, or Human Rights Watch. There are another organization called Human Rights Watch. All these organizations, NGOs, work in the field of human rights to protect your dignity. So friends, with this, I am ending this lecture. And friends, this floor is open for informed discussion. Welcome, all of you. Yes.